Alright, hey, what's up you guys? So, this video, despite however it's going to be taken by the audience, is to serve as a follow-up or an updated version of the Molina guide. Whereas I made the video before, it was like an hour long, and even watching it over, I could have condensed a lot of parts of it, but this part's going to be breaking down into four, more or less, kind of, you know, covering her specials, then her strings, her general play, and then probably Oki. And I'll probably throw matchups in there somewhere within the final two videos. And I'll be using the stream for this just because I can highlight it afterwards and just chop it up that way really easily. So if I do not reply to anything, I do apologize to any streamers that may be commenting or popping up. But yeah, so in this video, in this first section, it's going to cover her specials. So Molina's specials, her general specials are sigh, which is back forward 1, her enhanced sighs, in which you hit R2. You have ball roll, which is what the hell is it? Back down 4. Because I have the muscle memory for these things, but I forget the input sometimes. And then you have the enhanced version of that. You have Tele kick and the enhanced Tele kick. And lastly, her X-ray. Within piercing, you gain a low sigh, which is a low, as the name suggests. It's back forward 3, and you can enhance it as well. So what I want to cover is basically the uses of these moves in different scenarios, and you have the air sigh also, I forgot. And you have, an air teleport and the air X-ray. So one of the most commonly used specials that you will find yourself using, and that you may see myself using and many other Molina players, would be ball roll. And it's for good reason. One, it is very unsafe. On block it is -31, -32 respectively. So it is full combo punishable, and they can wait until she lands back on the ground even after spinning in the air and get their punish in that way. Same with the enhance roll. But the benefit of this move is that you really don't want to throw it out unless you know that it's going to hit. So it serves as a great reversal because it is 8 frames. It does gain some travel frames, just because of the distance, so it'll be like 10 or 11 give or take. And it serves as an amazing anti-air, where, as you'll see from here, even all the way at that height, it's still knocking them out, in which you can follow up with it and gain meterless damage, like a good 27 to 30% depending on the kind of combo and setup that you're going for. Her enhanced roll works similarly as an anti-air, except you just have to time it better. Because as you can see, if only the first couple of hits make contact, the rest of the move will whiff. So it's very, very useful against people that like to cross you up, because this move, burning meter for it, not only does it change it into an overhead, but it also gives the move armor. And this would be your go-to wake up as well when it comes to Oki setups, because it has armor. So you have that, and also EX roll plays its part when it comes to your mix-ups. Whereas, like with strings like this, you have a whole bunch of mids into the low, you can now throw out the overhead for the mix-up. Or like back to 1, which is mid to low, you can do mid into your overhead. So I will cover this in her strings portion, but going for the mix-up isn't recommended 100% of the time. Like, if you're playing against somebody that knows the matchup and they knows how to block, then you kind of are at liberty to throw out the mix-up, just because they really can't anticipate it unless you make a habit out of it. But if you're playing against somebody that's very, very fluid, you want to make sure that you condition him first. Whereas if you're doing back to 1, you want to make sure that you're just constantly throwing this out, that you almost never cancel into the roll. So that way they will not anticipate when you throw it out. They're always going to fear the low, in which you have advantage when you hit them with it. And if you make it on a hard read and you cancel into your Tele kick, you can hit confirm into it, though it's very, very tight. but you know, you can cancel into the telekick, into the sigh, and now you can start your offense, or you get a grab, or any other kind of setup. And that's mainly EX roll, like in a nutshell. And it does travel full screen. Unlike roll kind of just ends right there. And that's one thing that I want to touch upon. Roll, the way that I use it, and a lot of people, they think that I'm just throwing it out to try to hit them, is I don't. I want to be within this range so that in case they throw something out or they're waiting and they're just blocking, I can whiff a roll in which it does have about 20 frames of recovery, but because they're expecting it to make contact, they won't initiate an attack right away. In which in that point, I'll either go into down 3 or I'll use the EX roll for the armor to serve as my backup. Or you can backdash, or you can just block, depending on the kind of player that you're playing against and their reactions to whatever move you do. So it is a very good way to close the gap, like if you're trying to get in and you keep on throwing stuff out, or if they're really good at spacing, you can throw it out to move in case you don't want to commit to your telekick, which is also unsafe on block. So with that said, I'll jump into the telekick. Telekick is about 22 frames of startup, so it is a little bit on the slow side. Burning meter for it does not give it armor, it doesn't make it any faster, it still works exactly the same, and on block, the telekick, the enhanced version, is actually more unsafe than the regular version. But the benefit of this is that it is very good at catching jumps, like very obvious jumps, very high arc jumps, or characters that like to use aerial based moves, like Katana, Tanya and Pyromancer, or Naginata, Quan Chi if he's trying to do his skulls, you know, from the air, and so on and so forth. So it's really good for catching those, but if you're going to catch somebody in the air, you do not want to burn the meter, because the follow-up is incredibly inconsistent, where you need to time the sigh to make contact with them, in which you're not guaranteed a follow-up afterwards. So my recommendation when it comes to using the enhanced sigh is, one, usually preferably only in the corner, because you can get a pretty good chunk of damage from the follow-up, and only if you're hit confirming into it, you know, like so. Well, I obviously messed up the combo, but yeah. Or the same with mid-screen, you should hit confirm into EX telekick for your combos. You should not use it to catch anybody in the air, just because you're burning meter for absolutely no reason, and the payout, it's gonna harm you instead of benefiting you. So there's that, and you can also hit confirm into a regular telekick if you're going for like the plus frames and all that. But as you can see, a grab is not guaranteed. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Your back 1-2, that's guaranteed. So they can't really mash out a jump, or they can't mash out an uppercut just because it will catch them. So that's kind of the benefit of it, in the sense that it creates an additional mix-up. But at the same time, you do have to be mindful as to what you're doing afterwards. Like, the usual go-to that you should go for would be just back 1-2, just because it's going to reach them. They can't mash out of it, or else they're going to get hit if they're letting go of block. And if it hits them, you're massively plus, where you can run in again and keep on repeating it. And it'll catch any backdashing if you're a little bit slow in your timing, unless it's a backdash like Kano's. But yeah, overall, it's like it's really good to just follow up a back 1-2 after you do the telekick on hit, the telekick into sigh. When it comes to blocking, because she has no mix-up within the air, most people are going to block the telekick ducking, which is how they should block it. When when she does the enhanced tele kick, it somewhat makes it tighter for them to knock her out of the air if she cancels into the air sigh, but it still is just as unsafe as doing the regular tele kick into air sigh. So there is that. The mix-up that comes out of this is whether or not she's going to cancel into the air sigh or not. In which, if she doesn't, she's still full combo punishable as she comes down. Every character, well, most characters, like Katana is the only one that comes to mind where she's the exception. They can get a uppercut punish, in which it is, yeah, 14%, but it's a huge chunk of damage for a single hit, and then they have all the advantage. They can be on top of her now. So uppercuts punish that, and uppercuts will also punish an air sigh on block, because air sigh on block is not safe. As opposed to, you know, popular opinion by players that claim to know what they're doing. It isn't safe. You can't make it safe. You can make air sigh safe if you do the enhanced version, in which it's only -4. Oh no, well, I think it's -4. Like, this frame data is off by a few frames, the one in game. So yeah, it's only -4, so you're still safe, but you're not plus, you're not neutral. And there's a gap in between these two hits where everybody can uppercut right in between them, or if they have a low profiling move like a low poke or a slide based move, they can uppercut or use those moves right in between them, and they don't need to use armor for it. So there's that, and most characters, they can get a down one punish right in between them anyways, in which if she doesn't cancel, the down one will hit her and she's gonna be grounded, but now they have all the advantage. So they can go for, you know, block pressure, they can go for a grab, they can go for a mix-up, and so on and so forth. So there's that. And I guess now touching base with it are her air sighs. These are now 13 frame startup, as opposed to before, where they were 15 frame startup, but they weren't active until like frame 17. So you have your air sighs. They have their use, but it's kind of pointless in a sense to throw them out unless it's a character like Naginata Tanya, where she's constantly in the air because she doesn't need to be grounded the entire time. Just because, as you can see, the recovery off of it, it's almost virtually the same as using your grounded air sighs. And your grounded air sighs are safer than the air sighs already are, so they're going to naturally be more plus at a large distance as opposed to the air sighs, which would be roughly neutral. Like, they're probably only going to be about like +5 if anything, and I could be exaggerating that number, it could be neutral. But air sighs and grounded sighs, they definitely change, they have a huge difference in block advantage and hit advantage from full screen. So there's that. You can meter burn them, in which there kind of is no reason to do so, unless you're trying to chip someone out, or you're trying to just get like additional damage in the air, like if you're doing a combo within the air for unbreakable damage. But aside from that, there's really no use to even be burning meter for it. When it comes to your standing size, because they changed the frame beta to it to only being -8, it works virtually the same as Katana's pressure and her staggers, where Katana can do a string into a fan, and against the majority of the roster, because of the pushback that it has, and it only being -8, no one is punishing it. You can check her with the move, so that she doesn't get out unless she decides to armor out afterwards. But it's the same exact thing now with Mileena, where you can cancel strings into your air sigh, not into air sigh, into regular sigh. Some of these strings have gaps, like forward 1, 2, back 4, it has a gap right before the sigh hits. But for everything else, you can cancel into it, and it creates roughly the same exact scenario. So it's kind of like playing like Katana when you use it. And if you burn meter, it is safe. It's only -2. Let me just double check these. Yeah, so you're only -2. So it's very much safe. You're not plus, you're not neutral again. However, there is a gap in between the two sides, in which, like before, like I said, a low profiling poke, a slide, or an uppercut will interrupt right in between. So it is something to keep in mind and to use sparingly. It is a good way to gain like additional frames, like when you're using it like this. Just because, as you can see, by the time that by the second sigh, as it's making contact, she's already able to move. So you can see how plus it is from full screen. So that's kind of that. That's her size in a nutshell, like her grounded size. And you can use it, you know, to check people. It's a high, so they can crouch block it. Not crouch block, they can just crouch it and it will go right over them. But that's where low sigh comes into play, where they have to block the low unless they want to jump. And if they start jumping, you can catch them either with an air sigh or with a tele kick. So that's how her general full screen zoning works. So now going into low sigh, it is a 14 frame low. So it's so ratchet. Like 2 and up 4, you know, the last hit is an overhead. So you could have a meterless mix up using low sigh. However, it is unsafe and it's very unnecessary unless the person is constantly armoring in between the gap within the string. Just because, you know, it's already safe. This is already safe. So, and you get a mix up out of this, as in, are you going to backdash, or are you going to go for a low poke, or are you going to go for an armored overhead? So the only time that I would ever recommend really using 2 on low sigh is if it's a confident and a smart player that is always blocking this accurately. They know how to block, they know, you know, what hits where. So it is a way to throw them off. On hit, it is only +7, so nothing is guaranteed. However, you do have, you know, advantage. So you could go for back 1-2, you can go for a low poke, you can try to go for a grab, but because it is only +7 and all of those follow-ups are between 1 to 4 frames slower, like it creates a 1 to 4 frame gap, they can either jump out, they can backdash, or they can armor before your move comes out. Or if you're going for back 1, if they have a low profiling move, they can use that move and it will beat out your back 1 before it makes contact. So there is still a very large meta behind low sigh on hit, and the same with EX low sighs on hit, because that one is only +8. It only gains 1 more frame, in which it still creates roughly the same scenario. So there's that, and on block, this one is -17, right? And then the next one is -14 if you burn meter for it. But like I was showing before with her regular size, from full screen, as you can see, it's significantly safer. Where by the time that the second one is hitting, she's practically neutral. So that's kind of all of her specials in a nutshell. Like that's your general usage for them. And low sigh does kind of serve its purpose when it comes to jumping. Like with Sonya's dive kick, like let's say she's over here and she's coming down into a dive kick, it is a good way to catch her with the low sigh, instead of committing to a roll and trying to knock her out of it, and on the off chance that she does block it, now she's going to full combo punish you and basically play her game from that point onward. So lastly would be the X-ray, in which you can cancel it out of the air and you can cancel it into it grounded. And just like every other X-ray, it does have a few frames of invincibility on startup. So it is a good way, like if you have like that sliver of health left, it is a good way if you have the 3 bars to try to get out of it, just because it is safe afterwards. You're not plush. She's like -9, I believe, but she is safe afterwards on block. And as you can see, it does 4.5% in chip, which doesn't seem like much, but if you do like a full-blown string canceling into it, like this, into telekick, into the X-ray, you can see how much chip she just did right there. So it is a good way to close out the round on block. And you can hit confirm after a telekick into your X-ray, and it will connect as a combo. So it does a nice chunk of damage, and her X-ray is one of the few X-rays that do significantly boost up her damage if she uses it within a combo. So yeah, that's kind of it, covering her specials. So stay tuned for the next video, which will be up in a few minutes, and that one will cover her strings. So thank you for watching, and I hope that this is of help. Take care.